This is the half kneeling hip flexor stretch. This is very similar to the standing hip flexor stretch, but it addresses your hip flexors in a little bit of a different way and stretches one out of the 4 quadriceps, which crosses the hip, called your rectus femoris. So this is very similar to the standing hip flexor stretch. Takes a little bit more effort to get down on one knee, but it is a great stretch. All right, so what you're going to do is put your hand on your lower back. So we'll get into, first off, we'll get into a half kneeling stance, okay? I always like to have something to balance, to hold on to, that's close by, so I don't turn this into a balance exercise, but rather it's truly a stretch. So what I'll do is I will put one hand on my lower back, like this, and this is the monitor to ensure that I'm not hyperextending my lower back, all right? Then what I'll do is I'm going to engage this right buttock by squeezing it together, and I'm going to engage my core by pulling my pubic bone up towards me. In doing so, I've flattened out my lower back. Notice how my pelvis rotated backwards. Just that in and of itself, I'm feeling a stretch right now in the front of my hip and down into my thigh here. This feels a little bit different than the standing hip flexor stretch in that you'll feel a little bit more down the thigh, okay? My foot is mostly right behind me. It's not way in like this. It's not way out. It's mostly right behind me. But you could toy around with a little bit of both, okay? Get creative. But typically it's right behind you. So in this position, my buttock is squeezed. I'm up nice and tall, and my core is engaged. My back is nice and flat, and this right hand here is my monitor. If I'm not getting a great stretch, I can start to come forward a little bit, all right, like so. But as I come forward, it's very important that I don't start to arch my lower back. So I don't want to blow out my lower back by arching my lower back, and I don't want to blow out the front of my hip. So my spine always wins. If I feel like I'm losing some of my flat back posture here, then I don't go any further. So right there. Lastly, what I can think about with this exercise is there's this phenomenon called reciprocal inhibition, where when you activate one muscle group, it shuts off the other. So by literally thinking about pushing my thigh behind me, so in this case, this mat, I'm literally trying to push it backwards with my right leg here, I'm going to get my buttock activated in a little bit more of a functional manner, okay? So my butt is squeezed, my core is engaged, I'm literally pushing my knee's not moving, but if it were to move, it would go backwards. I'm literally pushing my knee backwards and then coming forward slightly, getting that nice stretch. Holding that for about a minute, 2 or 3 times. Again, stretching is most effective after a workout or after foam rolling, when everything's nice and warmed up and the knots are freed up. That is the half kneeling hip flexor stretch.